So we have our plan for the blog and we've got our web hosting and domain name selected. Now it's time to set it up. Well, I'm Mike with WriterSanctuary, and today we're going to be setting up WordPress and its essential plugins to get the blog rolling. Now, WordPress is probably one of the most powerful tools when it comes to building just about any kind of website. In fact, statistically, it runs about almost 40% of all the websites on the internet. That's because WordPress can accommodate anything from a news website to an online store. And it's super easy to use and free. So the free part's probably why most people use it. But after all the content management systems I've used in the past, I'd swear that WordPress is probably one of the easiest. Drupal. So let's install WordPress and get the ball rolling. So if you're using GreenGeeks web hosting, it's super easy to get WordPress installed. Now, there's a variety of different ways you can do it, but today we're going to use Softaculous because it's the quickest way. So from our GreenGeeks panel here, we hit cPanel, and then we're going to scroll down to Softaculous. From here, we're going to click on WordPress, install now, and from here we set up our installation stuff. So we want the current version. This is going to, where's it at? Okay, we got to give it a name. Whoops. The site description. Now the site description, we can go ahead and put it in now, or we can change it at any point. So we're going to put in showing practical reasons to live green. And now we have our admin account. Never stick with the admin username because that is one of the first things most hackers and bots are going to try when they try to gain access to your website. So you want to make sure that your login credentials are unique, and that's including the username and password. Now in Softaculous, when you're creating an admin password, you can either put one in that you want, or you can click this little guy over here and it'll generate a random string for you. Now the random strings are much harder to crack, but they're also a lot harder to remember. So if you use this function, you're going to have to write down the password. And then keep the password in a safe place so nobody else can get into it. Next thing we're going to do is change the admin email, because admin@practicallylivinggreen.com doesn't exist. And when you're creating an admin email, you want to make sure that you don't use admin because you'll get bombarded by a ton of spam. And not a lot of people trust admin addresses anymore. And one thing to note is that the admin address can be changed at any point. So you can use your normal address right now, but then when we set up our email addresses later, we can change it. And we're going to change our language as English. Select plugins. Now, each web host is different. They'll have plugins automatically that are capable of being installed through Softaculous. I'm going to install the classic editor because I hate Gutenberg. And I'm going to install WP Forms Lite because, well, I want to be building a contact form. And we're going to use Loginizer to limit the amount of times somebody can try to log into the website. It's just a way to fine-tune your security so that people don't keep there and try brute force attacks, which is when they try the same password over and over trying to gain access. Bots can do this incredibly quickly, but with a Loginizer, you can limit how many times someone can try before it times them out. We're not going to worry about the advanced options because this is where you can change your database settings, the database name that you use. But if you don't know how to do all of that kind of stuff, then I would suggest just leaving it as is. Because right now we're just trying to build a simple blog, basic blog, to try to make some money. So we're not going to worry about the advanced settings yet. And we can select a theme. I'm not sure if I want any of the themes that are available because there's nothing that really stands out, and I like to go through and try to pick my own. So we're just going to pick something basic for now, I guess. We don't have to because WordPress comes with like 3 or 4 default themes that the creators of WordPress install on it. So now we just go down to install and let Softaculous do its thing. Then from here, we just wait for the WordPress installer to complete, and then it pops up that we're ready to go. Unfortunately, you might have to wait for a little bit for everything to populate through DNS. Now, this is if you set up your website for the first time and you just went straight to installing WordPress. The DNS has to filter through all your different internet service providers to show people that this website does exist. That can take anywhere from 10 minutes to 48 hours, depending on your ISP and registrar. But to be honest, I've never seen it take longer than 5 to 10 minutes. After a brief moment, you just click on the administrative URL, or you can access your website completely by clicking either one of these 2 links that are in Softaculous, and that'll open a new window. At which point you just log into WordPress and you're good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is look for a theme, because that's going to bug me to make a Set it like right now it's using 2020, so we're gonna look for a new one. So we're gonna hit add new theme, and we're going to search for something that's more. Oh, that's almost there. Okay, something more natural, because we're creating a green blog, so we want something that has more of an eco-friendly tone to it. That one might work. Eco Nature Light. Now in the theme preview, it's going to give you an idea of what your site will look like, but right now, since we don't have anything installed, it's just going to be a basic layout. We don't have the banner installed or anything, so I don't really pay too much attention to the theme preview at this point because, well, it's kind of pointless. So for now, we're going to go ahead and hit the install now the install button and activate it. So now we have something basic that we can start from. Now, we may keep this one, we may not, but in the meantime, it's there. And if you're curious as to what the theme has on it, you can always go to widgets, because some themes will install their own widgets. And it doesn't look like this one has any, so we will have to do our own. It does come with a blog sidebar. Every theme will have a different type of sidebar layout. It's one of the reasons why I like using Color Mag so much, is because there's like so many different places you can put stuff. But the problem is, the more stuff you add to your sidebar, the slower your website becomes. So you want to kind of balance how it looks to performance, because you don't want something that's kind of plain and bland and basic, but you don't want anything that's going to be slow either. So when you customize, you can get all the different options that it can handle. So we can do a site identity, colors, a header image. Tells us here we had 1600 by 400 would be the most ideal. We can add a background image. We can change the menus, widgets, homepage settings. These are all the basic controls that come with just about every theme. So now that we have our theme, let's start installing some essential plugins. Now, depending on the type of blog you're building, you're going to find plugins later on that'll amplify what you can do. Like if you're building a health and fitness website, you can find a plugin that shows recipes or the BMI or anything like that. If you can think of it, somebody probably built a plugin around it. But to start things off with, I love Yoast SEO, so we're going to install that right off the bat. So we're going to go to plugins, add new. Let's install Yoast. So we go to install now and activate. Now the reason why I'm installing Yoast is because it helps you create content, plus it makes connecting your website to Google Analytics and Search Console much easier. Plus it comes with a lot of tools that we're going to use later on. For one thing, we can create the sitemap that we're going to add to Search Console. And it looks like the plugin WP Forms Lite is being deactivated due to an error. Plugin file does not exist. Well, that's fine. We'll just delete that. We can delete the contact form, or we can add the contact form later anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it happens. Kind of embarrassing, but oh well, moving on. So the next thing we want to do is add some security. So we're going to go to Add New. And I personally like using WordFence. I've met the people from WordFence, and they're awesome. And I love the tool. I always have. It comes with all kinds of cool stuff like login security. It sends you reports if anything happens to your website. Anytime you log in, it sends you an email. If there's plugins that are outdated, it sends you an email. I mean, it keeps you apprised of what's going on the site. So we'll go ahead and activate it. So from here, we're going to add our email address. And this is how WordFence is going to get in contact with us whenever there's a problem with the site. After you enter your email address, you can add a premium key if you have one, but WordFence works great for being free. So we're just going to go ahead and hit no thanks for now. And now it's activated, ready to go. Now the next thing we're going to do is install some kind of backup system, because it's always a good idea to have your files backed up no matter what. So we go to add new, and I'm going to go ahead and add, oh, we have to configure WordFence. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So right now we're going to do Updraft Plus. I like Updraft Plus because it can let you save your backups to the cloud. And since I use Dropbox, it can save my backups directly to my account. And now we see a message that says, do you want WordFence to stay up to date automatically? Now we're going to go ahead and click Yes, Auto Update. But there's several different ways you can have your plugins automatically update, and it's always a good idea to have them updated, because an obsolete plugin can put your site at risk. It could also prevent it from being broken. So like if you're using a plugin that's 7 years old and the coding that was used to create it is no longer supported by your browser, it can crash your website. So it's always best to keep your plugins up to date if possible, and if they get too old, it's good idea to replace them. Okay, so the next thing we want to worry about is optimization. Even though it's still a small website, might as well get it out of the way. I like using Optimize because it's a great and easy tool. It works, so far it's been an awesome addition. So we'll go ahead and go Auto Optimize. Now later on, when the blog starts growing, we'll make some tweaks to our optimization and caching, and we'll go over that later. But for now, we just want to get the tool up there, mainly so I remember that I need it. So what's the next thing you need? I'm going to go ahead and add in TinyMCE Advanced because it adds far more functionality to the content creation part of your blog, such as adding pretty much anything you can think of that's in a word processor is going to be in TinyMCE Advanced. So install now and activate. So what else is our blog going to need? Well, I'm going to go ahead and add in Shortcodes Ultimate because there's a few buttons and there's tab shortcodes that I would like to use later on because I already have some ideas for content. So I'm going to go ahead and add in Shortcodes. Whoops. Well, it still might show it up. There we go. Shortcodes Ultimate. We hit install now. Activate. And that adds a button to our editor that'll let us do all kinds of different kinds of shortcodes for just about anything we can think of. It even has like calendar. I normally use it for buttons, the tab control. But these are all my personal favorites. You can put in whatever you want, but the main thing to think about is your SEO, security, backup, and anything that's going to improve functionality. Something else I'm going to install now is Jetpack. Now what Jetpack does is that it adds like 30 plus modules to your website that you can use for all kinds of different things, like lazy loading, to where your images don't load unless somebody scrolls down to a certain point. You can track stats through WordPress.com. You can use the publicize feature to where it'll automatically post content to social media. So like if you create a new post in Facebook and Twitter, as soon as you hit publish, it automatically sends it to those social accounts. So we're going to go ahead and install Jetpack. A lot of people don't like it, but I do. Now the thing about Jetpack is that it requires a WordPress.com account. Now WordPress.com is free, so you're not being charged anything, but you're still going to need one. So I'm going to go ahead and set up Jetpack real fast so that I don't have to worry about it later. Now, connecting Jetpack to WordPress.com doesn't really take a lot of time. I don't mind doing it simply because I like the tools that are in Jetpack, and it's where I can track all my sites all at once. It's kind of a fun way to analyze your site all in one spot. I'm also going to use Google Analytics, but I like the layout of how Jetpack does it in WordPress.com, and I'll show you how to do that later on. And the last thing I'm going to install, and this is completely optional, go to add new plugins, is WP Word Count. Now the reason why I'm installing WP Word Count is so that it keeps track of my productivity for how many words I type, as well as any contributing authors I have. So since I'm going to have my son help me with these, I can keep an eye on how productive we are. And this is completely optional, you don't need to use it, but I find it a good tool to set up content creating goals, such as how many words I need to write in a day in order to surpass what I've done before. I wrote a blog post about that recently, and I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. And lastly, we want to make sure that we install Really Simple SSL. Now, Really Simple SSL will help connect your site to your SSL certificate of your web host. Now with GreenGeeks, it already connected my SSL to my website, so I really technically don't need Really Simple SSL, but it's always best to have it just in case. And activate. And then on this screen here, we'll hit the Go Ahead Activate SSL button, which is going to rewrite all the stuff that's on our website to be secure. Now from this screen, you'll have at least one of these error messages, and this is the 301 redirect enabled. Now with a redirect, it's best for websites that already have content on there. That way, if somebody comes to your site, they get redirected to the correct, now secured version of that page. But with a brand new blog that has no content, it really doesn't matter. But I'm going to go ahead and enable it anyway because I'm the type of person that can't stand to have an error message in any plugin. So we just go ahead and click this button here to enable a 301 redirect and hit save. And now SSL is enabled on our website. Now, if you were using a web host that didn't have your website connected already, like GreenGeeks does, you would probably see a message, or it'd probably kick you out, and then you'd have to re-log back into WordPress. This is because you're logging back in from an HTTP, you're logging back in with HTTPS. To make a long story short, it's always best to install really simple SSL and just enable it. Okay, now that we have our essential plugins installed, we're going to go ahead and click here to configure the WordPress web application. It's a quick process, and it helps you set up the firewall, and it helps you back up your htaccess file. So just follow the prompts when they come up, and it walks you through the whole process. It takes less than 10 seconds. Now later on, you can go through and figure out more of your settings for your firewall, so you can like make security far more intense. You can see that WordPress already has 100% brute force protection, which gives us no reason to have loginizer. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to plugins, and I'm going to remove loginizer only because WordPress does it as well. And sometimes when you have two plugins that do the exact same thing, they break each other. So I don't want to risk it, so I'll get rid of loginizer. But if you don't want to use WordPress and you go with a different system that doesn't have login attempts protection, then you might want to keep loginizer, but for me, it doesn't really serve a purpose. So there we have it. Now we go back to our dashboard, and looks like the next step we're going to be doing is creating content. So there we have it. That's setting up WordPress with the essential plugins. Now you don't have to use the ones that I used, but if you don't, then keep in mind your SEO, security, backup, and anything that's going to help you create content. For instance, you really don't need shortcodes ultimate if you're not going to be adding shortcodes. And shortcodes are kind of like little snippets of code that you put into a page or a post that'll do a certain task. And we'll cover that later. But for instance, I can take a small shortcode and slap it into a post for creating a button. But I like using shortcodes ultimate because it's really quick and easy to set certain things up. But like I said, it's optional. What kind of plugins would you use on your blog? Leave in the comments down below. I've got several favorites. It just depends on what I'm trying to do. Like Yoast will always be one of the first things I go to, simply because I love the tool, and ever since I've been using it, I even use it to write content for text broker clients. And ever since I've been using it, I've had far fewer revision requests. Everything comes out so much cleaner. So ever since then, I've been in love with the tool. And I know there's people out there that'll swear up and down for other SEO tools, and that's fine. Pick what works for you. Sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to find those things that work best for you, but it's worth it. It's worth the investment of time to find a tool that is going to be more in line with what you're trying to accomplish with your blog. Like later on, when we start adding affiliates, I'll show you a really cool plugin to use that'll help you maximize your profits. So if you find the video informative, hit the like button. If you want to find out more about building a better blog, text broker, freelance writing, WordPress, or anything else I cover, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. That's going to do it for me today. I'll see you tomorrow.